Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1979 Lincoln Continental Mark V. Up front is a 6.6 liter V8, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here Lincoln Continental for two main reasons. First of all, last fall I did a Lincoln Town Car from 1978, and so I think this is a nice compliment. That was a 4-door with the 7.5. This is a 2-door with the 6.6. So I think this video and that video will complement each other nice in terms of getting a good grasp of Lincoln in the 70s. But the second reason is because I love these 70s cars so much. They're big, they're boaty, they're floaty, and I love it. So let's get back to that 6.6 liter, 400 cubic inch V8. Well, it was the only engine offered in 1979. Up through the Mark V's life, you could always get the 450 cubic inch V8 that was a 7.5 liter. But in the early 70s, obviously the oil crisis hit. There became bigger and bigger restrictions until here in 1979, they dropped the 7.5 liter completely and only offered the 6.6. Now today we laugh at that because a 6.6 liter is still a monstrous engine for a car. But don't worry, this car made tons of horsepower. If you consider 159 horsepower to be a lot. It's lopey, it's throaty, it's not going anywhere. It's about as fast as a tugboat, and it handles like one too. But that's sort of the charm of it. This is when cars were still big, and 1979 was a really crucial year for the Continental Mark V because it was the very last year before the Continental really started to go downhill. This is the last true big Continental. Acceleration test, 159, don't let me down. Here we go. I didn't make it to the speed limit. Like I said, paired to a 3-speed automatic. I'm actually not really noticing it too much. It's geared really, really tall. The owner described the gears as taller than the Empire State Building, which makes sense. However, it's nice and smooth. Granted, the odometer reads 24,000 miles, which apparently is slightly off. It's probably a little bit closer to 30,000, but still 30,000 miles! That is nuts. Last but not least, of course, the Continental is rear-wheel drive. So let's talk about the interior. We have plenty of fun 70s things to go through. Well, in front of me, I have a couple of gauges. On the left is an analog clock. I do not get a tachometer. This is an analog clock. In the center, I get my gear selector, and on the right, I get my speedometer and odometer. Also up at the top, I get my warning lights. They're very clear. You can very easily see what a warning might be, and that's very typical of like 80s and 70s cars. On the steering wheel, I have cruise control on and off on the left, and then my set, accelerate, and coast on the right. I absolutely love that. The steering wheel is so thin. It's like a piece of wire. And of course, no airbag because this predates mainstream airbags by almost 20 years. I do have the shifter, of course, on the column. Like I said, it is automatic, so nothing really too crazy there. To the left of me, I have my headlight switches for auto lamp, lights, dimmer, max delay, and max range. And then down below that, interestingly enough, I do have my climate controls. The Continental Mark V does have air conditioning. However, currently, this air conditioning doesn't work, but it is an R12 system, which is an older system of air conditioning. It's an older Freon, R12 Freon, which is very, very hard to obtain because it causes cancer when spilled out into the atmosphere. So manufacturers don't use it anymore, and no one makes it anymore. On the door, I do have my power mirrors, my power seat adjustments, as well as, of course, my power windows, which are very nice features for here in the Continental. Moving into the center, I have my fuel gauge and my miles till empty, which the miles till empty is a digital readout. That's right, 1979 got a digital readout for miles till empty. You think of this car as predating digital readouts, but not actually. To the right of that, I have my wiper controls, funny enough, and then I have the factory radio. Now, what's interesting is that the radio actually says Ford, and this is the factory proper radio. It also said that in the Lincoln Town Car, of course, because Lincoln is owned by Ford, even back in the 70s. To the right of the center stack, I do have a glove box, and it says Continental Mark V on it. I absolutely love this wood paneling, this wood finish. Very, very 70s, very dated, of course, but very stylistic of the 70s, and I love that look. Moving down below, I don't get any cup holders, so because of that, the Lincoln Continental Mark V fails the big friggin' bottle test. Now, the seats, of course, very, very plush, very, very comfortable. I love the seats. They do have traditional seat belts. I do get these little fold-down armrests, and you can really fit 3 people up here if you wanted to, but you sink right into them. They soak up the bumps along with the suspension. I love it. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review in this huge coupe. All right, so we're in the back of the Lincoln Continental Mark V coupe, and normally I hate coupes. However, this is one of the comfiest chairs I've ever sat in. Not just in a car, just in life. I've sat in many, many lazy boy recliners that don't even touch this thing. It is so comfortable back here. My legs have plenty of space, and I'm a big boy, you know that. I don't really get any amenities back here. I don't have shoulder belts, I just have lap belts. I get some nice wood accents back here. That is very, very nice. But other than that, nothing really back here, except for the fact that I fit really, really well. Getting in and out of coupes, you'll never ever be graceful. You'll never look good getting in and out of a coupe, but once you're back here, you are very, very comfortable. I can see it now. Going cross country in one of these, because the 70s I feel like is really when the road trips started to really hit their stride. Yes, the highway system was constructed in the 50s, but I feel like the 70s, the cars were able to hit 70, 80 miles an hour and maintain that and actually go cross country, and cars were big, so you could fit everything into your Country Squire or your Buick or your Lincoln Continental Mark V. I can imagine discovering the country through these little opera windows. That's actually the technical term for these little windows. They're called opera windows, which is kind of fun. Anyway, let's go take a look at the massive trunk. All right, so I already popped the trunk because it's kind of hard to do with one hand while holding the camera, but in order to pop the trunk, you actually move this over to the side and you use a separate key from the ignition in order to pop the trunk. Very typical of older cars like this, needing a second key for the trunk. But once it is popped, lift it right up. I love the fact that they just put the spare tire just right there. I mean, but look at the size of this trunk. I mean, it is a football field. I love this older, like, warning labels and everything like that. This is the original paint on the car. Like I said, it's around 30,000 miles, which is fantastic. Love this trunk. And a lot of people think that this sort of rounded shape, that's where the spare tire goes, but it's actually the factory location is right there, which is pretty fun. And I just can't imagine all of the things that were put in here in the 70s. Love that. Now we have to talk about the looks, and the first thing you notice is just how large this vehicle is. It's just under 19 feet long, and boy, do you feel it when you drive, but we'll talk about that in a second. I love the extruding bumpers. I love the half vinyl top. Very stereotypical of the 70s. Hands down, one of my favorite parts of the Lincoln Continental Mark V are the headlights. The headlights are vacuum operated and they are hideaway headlights, garage door headlights, if you will, and I absolutely love that. Super 70s, super 80s too. 80s love their pop-up headlights. But I just think overall this car looks the part. This is what a 70s businessman drove. This is what he showed up to his meetings in. Because look at it, it's a coupe. This is not a family vehicle. Now, a lot of families had them, and you can fit people in the back very comfortably, like we just showed with the backseat review. But when you buy a coupe, it makes a statement. When you buy a sedan, it makes a statement. The sedan says, hey, I drive people around a lot. They get their own doors. That's how important they are. But a coupe says, no, I'm important. Maybe one other person than me is important, but I'm the important one. That's what coupes have always said to me, whether it be a brand new BMW or this here Lincoln Continental. A coupe means business. But one more thing before we get to my final thoughts is the driving experience. This thing soaks up the bumps, it floats over dips, it floats over everything, and I absolutely love it. Will I max out my Fitbit walking from the hood to the trunk? Yes, but that's the joy of it. This thing is a huge car, and after this, they started downsizing. The Lincoln Continental was always a big car even after this, but not as big as this. Now we have to get to my final thoughts, and I have a bunch about the Lincoln Continental Mark V. First of all, I'm driving this Continental, this American, Michigan-built car on a country back road on a beautiful day. It has been raining here in Illinois for the last 2 weeks straight this year. And we finally get a sunny day. And look, maybe get a little bit of rock and roll on the radio. I'm driving to go get fitted for a plaid suit. I love this feeling. But let's talk more about that 70s feeling. To further emphasize my point, I wanted to get out of the car, and I know that might be a shock to you that I actually do have a lower torso and legs because you never see them in videos. Here they are. Anyway, something I wanted to show you about the 1979 Lincoln Continental Mark V is the door. Did you hear that? Solid. This car was so solidly built, and I wanted to use that as a point. The term anemoia means nostalgia that wasn't personally felt. I was not alive when this car came out. I wouldn't be alive for 20 more years after this car debuted. And yet I have a sort of nostalgia with it. I long for the days where this is what sat on the showroom floors. As I'm showing you right now with this solid built door, clunk. 20 years later, in the early 2000s, I reviewed a 2001 Ford Focus, and those door handles broke off. You had to get in the passenger side in order to get into the driver's side. But not this, 40 years later. There's something about that door. That's what American cars were. They were sturdy. They would click into place. What happened in those 20 years? Why aren't American cars built like this anymore? I don't know, and it's sad that they're not. I wasn't alive in 1979, but I certainly wish I was. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Mike for letting me take out this absolute time capsule of a Lincoln Continental. I don't think I'll ever drive one with lower mileage or in such good of shape as this. I mean, this really is a museum piece that he dailies. I mean, I'm almost hesitant to put this review out because I feel like the Henry Ford Museum might try to give Mike a call to get this into their showroom. I love it so, so much. The 70s, what a time, man. What a flippin' time. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.